if you treat everyone the same, you're failing everyone equally. And leaning into that, not everyone on my team needs a one-on-one every week. Some people need a check-in every day. Some people want and need a lot of direction. Some people want me to just leave them alone and give them the bare minimum of what they need to go do. Some days I'm a therapist. Some days I'm working through technical solutions and root cause corrective actions. And that's a lot of the leadership maturity I'm still gaining, figuring out the right balance of emotional and technical and giving people what they need, not just focusing on what I need or what the business needs from them.
Hello and welcome to the Leadership Launchpad. My name is Matt Jurtson, host of the show and the founder of Built, where our mission is to train the next generation of hard tech founders to build teams capable of solving the world's hardest problems. I use this show as part of that mission to go out and talk with amazing hard tech leaders at amazing hard tech companies. And today, I'm excited to welcome Nancy Cable, the Senior Director of Manufacturing at Ursa Major. During this conversation, you will get to learn a bit more about Ursa Major and the role Nancy's team plays in it. Plus, we dive into a lot of really great leadership principles. Nancy explains how she learns the strengths and weaknesses of each member of her team in order to get the most out of them, why you need to be flexible during your hiring process, and how to balance the order and chaos while leading in a manufacturing environment. Before we dive in, there was a ton of technical difficulties as we were setting up the recording. So we ended up just having the conversation on Zoom. If you're watching on YouTube, sorry if the quality isn't quite what it normally is, but it was still a great conversation. Thank you so much to Nancy for being willing to troubleshoot with me. With that, let's dive into the conversation. Nancy, welcome to the Leadership Launchpad. I am really excited that we made it through the technical difficulties of whatever this is with podcasting. Thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this conversation. I think, we already had a bit of a discussion a week or so ago. But to start, let's set the table for anybody that hasn't heard of Ursa Major. I'd love for you to kind of set the stage a little bit. Tell us a little about Ursa Major, kind of how it fits into the larger aerospace industry at the present moment, and then you can extend that to like your specific role. How do you you and your team fit into the company?
Sounds great. So Ursa Major is an aerospace and defense company. We turned 10 this year. We're about 300 employees. So quickly exiting what we would call startup phase and getting into our scaling phase. So we're an aerospace and defense company with an expertise in propulsion. We were founded on propulsion and have since extended that expertise out into several segments. So right now we support 3 different segments: hypersonics, space maneuverability, and solid rocket motors. All very relevant to the political ecosystem of the world right now, and all very exciting spaces to be in, and that they are propulsion adjacent, which is pretty up and coming segment. In the hypersonic space, we have proven flight capability, and we actually just announced a success with one of our new gen products, Draper, on flight just this last week. Awesome to see. So really the differentiator there is innovative technology that the defense industry does not have. We are providing brand new solutions that do not exist. In solid rocket motors, what we're providing is a capacity solution. We simply do not have the stockpiles of solid rocket motors that we need in the current world stage. Yeah. And so we have taken what the industry has traditionally done, which is one product line produces one type of rocket motor in a very manual way, and come up with a novel way to look at production, which is a mixed model approach to being able to produce anything from, very small, like 2-inch diameter, up to something as large as 21 inches in diameter on the same sets of equipment with the same people, a lot of the same processes, which breaks some of the traditional bottlenecks and provides sort of like a new capacity management tool for the industry. And then in space maneuverability, our play there is really lead times. You want to launch a satellite, you're sometimes looking at 24 plus months of lead time for just simply getting your propulsion solution to integrate onto a satellite us. And we looked at that and said, we've always been able to do things really fast with great rigor and high quality. Let's leverage our propulsion expertise into providing things in just a few months that the rest of the industry is perhaps taking years to do. So growing in that sector as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I know Ashley Vance talks a lot about this. The author Ashley Vance, just everybody that wants to go start a rocket company, it's like they want to start a rocket company and then they just get stuck in propulsion world forever and then never get out of it because it's just like, because that is the hard, it's just such a hard part. And so it makes sense that if you get that critical skill, just expand on that critical skill, and applying it to more and more use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we've done. Even 4 years ago when I first got to Ursa, the bulk of our business was around just that propulsion model and delivering just propulsion, and realizing that the market and our customers really want and need more than that. It's the commercial market, and it's also a matter of national security. So really being able to very quickly say, we're not just an engine provider, we can provide a full solution to you, has been critical to growth and success over the last few years.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so where does your role fit into that?
Great question. So I am a senior director of manufacturing. Right now, I focus primarily on our liquid side of the business. So that's in space and our hypersonics. Although my swing lane is over into solid missile systems since it's very manufacturing heavy. So I currently run our manufacturing engineering team, our industrial automation team, as well as our build operations team. So our shop floor techs, the most important people we have actually.
Yeah.
The most important people we have actually building our solid rocket motors and propulsion systems. Previously at Ursa, I've run supply chain for a brief period of time, been involved in safety, a number of other different facets of the business, as happens in startups. My focus right now is really on scalability. So taking what we do one time, awesome that we had one flight success for our one of our engines, but the way that we built that engine is not what is going to scale to doing 500 times a year, to doing this 5,000 times a year. So that's the focus of me and my team, is stabilize the processes, worked with the product design folks to get the designs manufacturable, and go from a few to a few hundred or a few thousand or a few 10,000 over the next few years.
It's such an interesting space because just even after giving my time at SpaceX, it's funny, once you get to be around for a little bit of time, people like yourself kind of in your role where you think about engineering through a manufacturing lens, you can't help but see it everywhere. Like every time you get a piece of furniture or a light that you're going to install, you're like, why is this screw here? Like this is really awkward.
In my personal life, I'm very hands-on. I do all of my own home renovation, fix all of my own vehicles, always making things. So the number of times I'm in the shop, like cursing the engineers from Ford, like, you should have made this bumper removable. Like, how come you found stop? This is crazy. There should be a screw, not a rivet. So yeah, it totally impacts every aspect of life. And my husband loves to make fun of the number of spreadsheets that I do. He'll be like, we don't need a spreadsheet for everything. I'm like, but it's the most efficient way.
We do.
But we do.
Are you sure?
We can make it quickly.
Excellent. Well, that's fantastic kind of groundwork. Obviously, the main reason we wanted to talk was about kind of the leadership side of your role and the people leadership side of your role. And just because, you kind of teed up a really great initial question for me, because when we were talking a week or so ago, I want to read it to make sure I get it exactly. Because you said you go to a lot of industry events and help with, women in engineering. And you said the most common question you get is, how do you deal with the disadvantage of being a woman in the tech world? So let's start there. Nancy, how do you deal with the disadvantage of being a woman in the tech world?
Yeah, Matt, it's just not a disadvantage. And that's what I always open with. And that's something that I want to bring to like any young women or young girls listening. In 2020, it was during COVID, and I got invited to speak at a high school, and we ended up having to do it remotely. And there was a group of 20 or so young girls, right? High school age girls. And before I spoke, I had them all go around and I asked them what they wanted to do. And it was a room full of girls wanting to be engineers and lawyers and veterinarians and artists, and just this amazing young cohort of women looking to be ambitious in the world. And I had 3 questions at the end of it that were some variation about the disadvantage. And so I just want to break that as a narrative. I don't show up every day to be great as as a woman at my job, I show up every day to like
Yeah.
kick butt at my job.
Yeah.
And that has my experience through my career is that, showing up and doing what I do, being solving problems no one else realizes are problems, building trust with other people, becoming the technical expert where I'm not. That means my gender isn't an issue. It's simply, not something that I viewed as a disadvantage, and maybe even in some aspects, and looking at it as an advantage. I tend to be
Yeah.
more emotional than some of my male counterparts. That's a great trait for a leader to have. In the aerospace industry, where it's still, proportionally fewer women, even in a, like innovative leaning company like ours, it does get me noticed more. And so really, not calling out my gender as a differentiator and never thinking it's a disadvantage, but really leaning into where it can actually be an advantage for
Yeah.
me as something I believe as a leader.
And I think that's such a great thing because it's not as if we're trying to say that there aren't differences between people, right? Like everybody's different and everybody brings different things to the game. And in any situation, it's just a matter of figuring out where are your tendencies and how are you going to bring them to bear. There is no best type. There's so many different variations in what it takes. And I'd love to dig a little bit deeper into that element that you mentioned of kind of the more of the more of the emotional, the building trust, the bringing people together side as you've kind of grown in the technical. We usually think when we think of engineering, when we think of manufacturing, we think about the technical stuff. But as you said, I think so often it's that people side that's really critical. How is that? How is your understanding of that expanded as you become a leader in a technical space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think early in my career, I said I had a wonderful mentor who looked at me and said, you'll have my job someday. Back when I was an engineer, and I looked at him and said, I don't want your job any day. I went to
Mhm.
engineering school. I want to be an engineer. This has always been my dream. This is what I want to do. And I'm so thankful for his mentorship and helping me realize that the things that I find the most value in are not the technical solutions, but it's the technical solutions that unlock potential of people. It's helping other people succeed. It's making their lives easier. And so as a leader, recognize, it's not all about the technical skills. It's about building a diverse team of individuals who care about different things. Building a team of people just like me would be a disaster for this company.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not the manufacturing team that we need. And so gaining leadership maturity has meant gaining a better understanding of what emotional diversity means, what technical diversity means, what diversity of industry and background and perspective mean. And then being able to bring that into my team building and hiring practices to say, everybody is different and they deserve to be treated that way. I once had someone tell me, if you treat everyone the same, you're failing everyone equally. And
Yeah.
leaning into that, not everyone on my team needs a one-on-one every week. Some people need a check-in every day. Recognizing
Oh.
some people want and need a lot of direction. Some people want me to just leave them alone and give them the bare minimum of what they need to go do. Some days I'm a therapist. Some days I'm working through technical solutions and root cause corrective actions. And that's a lot of the leadership maturity I'm still gaining, figuring out the right balance of emotional and technical and giving people what they need, not just focusing on what I need or what the business needs from them.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of that to get really like concrete and practical with it? Because I do think that's one of the big challenges of becoming a people leader, especially for the first time.
Yeah.
Because when you grow up and really all through school, it's probably natural that you're going to be surrounded with people like you because you have nothing like forcing you together with other people. And so you share common interests, you share common traits. And I think it's really easy to get all the way into your mid 20s and kind of generally, or even later, and really generally think that the way you think is kind of how everybody thinks. And then you become a people manager for the first time, and it's completely not true. But you often learn that through confronting it head on. Like you make a mistake, you try to do something, you talk to somebody the way you would want to be treated. It's the golden rule. You treat everybody like you would want to be treated, and then you find that it doesn't work that well. I'd love
Doesn't
if you have
work
any
that
examples.
way. Yeah, I have a number of examples throughout my career. I had the fortunate experience of my first team, leading my first team, and my first team was three people, and they were
Mhm.
all men. and they were all at least 25 years older than I was.
Okay. Okay.
Which
Deep
was
end. Let's go.
fantastic from the perspective that they were really there for it to help coach me
Yeah.
into being the best version of myself. And again, very fortunate experiences of having three people who are later in their careers and really just committed to success, and
Yeah.
all very different backgrounds. So, a good first experience with it. But then growing into, I even think about my current team now. I have one person on my team, and it took some work to get into the groove of having an excellent relationship with him and really utilizing him in his best capacity. I tend towards functioning on chaos. I'm the person who jumps in both feet first, solves the problems, thinks tactically, comes out with the solution immediately. He's an analyzer. He really wants to take the time and take the space to be able to make a decision with all of the data, all of the rigor, and do the most right thing. I'm like, can we throw duct tape on it? Like, no, okay, can we JB weld it together, right? And he's like, we will get the riveting process right. Like, we will do all of the weld sampling, but he's very much on that end of the spectrum. And when I first started, he was not someone I hired. He got put on my team, and when I first started managing him, it was actually a little frustrating because I was like, I need you to do more of this, like, go solve the problem, fix it, do it quickly, and being able to take a deep breath and actually sit down and think about and write out what are this person's strengths?
Yeah.
Where does he function best? And how can I then absorb that and make sure I'm putting him in the position to be successful, not just asking him to do the thing I see in front of him. And so
Yeah.
for new years, I think it is taking the time to really evaluate with to ask people, what do you want to do? I asked him what he wanted to do. He's in a totally different role than what he was in for me initially. And he is just killing it. He's leading people now. He's leading initiatives. He's making big difference in the business. But if I hadn't taken the time to think, what is he best at? And I hadn't actually asked him, what is it that you want to do? How do you function best? Where do you think your biggest value is? We never would have gotten frustrated with each other. And Matt, I think this applies in leadership, and I think it just applies in life relationships. We get a lot of schooling on technical stuff and history, and we don't get a lot of schooling on emotions and people and interacting. Nobody can read your mind, and don't assume you can read other people's minds. Ask people what they want, ask them what they value, ask them how often they want to meet. Ask them what they're interested in. And I think if that is your starting point as a new leader, that's where you start to grow into this success of recognizing everybody's strengths.
Is that something even that the asking that you had to grow into? Because I feel like, one of the things that you're a new manager, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to have all the answers. I'm supposed to know how to do this. Was that kind of a shift for you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I guess, I'm comfortable with it 10 years in, but yes, absolutely. That's a shift. It can feel uncomfortable. And I think really embracing the methodology of, I have two jobs: hire people smarter than me and work myself out of the job. And really embracing that helped me get over the I'm the manager, I have to have all the answers. No, I'm the leader. I'm here to provide a vision, a mission, and alignment. But I get success for the company and for individuals by getting a team of people that's smarter than me and eventually working myself out of a job. And so those two tenets, like, getting coached on those and really coming to believe them, like going through the discomfort of, I don't know, let me help crowdsource the answer, and settling into, like, my team has the answers and I'm just here to make sure they can implement them, was a helpful thought shift for me, and being able to through the discomfort of, like, thinking it's all on me to tell everyone what to do and to have the answers. Nobody wants to be told what to do. Very few people want to be told what to do. They want to be told where we're going and how we're going to get there and be supported along the way.
Especially in a company like Ursa Major, where you're hiring people, are coming there because they want to innovate, they want to do these fun things. Those are not the people who want to come in and just like, okay, I got my checklist from the boss, I'm just going to go through them. It's not the right kind of talent.
It's not the right kind of talent, and it's not what it's not what builds a great company. And actually, a few years ago, I had a manager here who was like, we need to hire all A+ people. I was like, okay, I see where you're coming from, and yeah, we want everyone to be good, but actually, like, I did that the first time around here. I hired all A+ people, and you know what they did? they all went and got different jobs because they were A+ people and they wanted to grow up and out. And so I've actually like settled into the methodology of hiring people across the spectrum. I want people who want the job that they're in and just want to do a really good job here. And I also want people who want the next job, want my job. I want to be
Yeah.
coaching the people in my job who want my
Yeah.
bosses. And so, putting together a team of people who have different interests in where they're going and different experience levels and even different aptitude levels is actually the way to success.
How do you think about that during the hiring process? Like, what are some, obviously, as you said, it's like 50% of your job is hiring people. So what are some of the things some of the tactics that you use to make sure it's, as you said, it's not just the right, it's like the line from the movie Miracle when when the coach is watching all the players that are trying out for the U.S. hockey team, and he just says, I'm not looking for the best not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones. So it's not just finding the right player, the right person, but the right person for that role. What are some of the things
Yeah.
that you think about during the hiring process?
Absolutely. So I think there's the team dynamic portion and then there's the individual dynamic portion. On the
Okay.
individual side, I tend to skew towards initiative and attitude. Those are two things that I have found hardest to coach. But when you
Sure.
find them, the technical is imminently coachable. I also have I will say the privilege of being in manufacturing, which is in this environment quite literally not the rocket science. So on the technical side, right, I work with literal rocket scientists. Our design engineers are designing rocketry hardware. They often need to skew more technical. I need the person who went to Purdue. I need the person with a PhD in, fluid dynamic propulsion, whatever. I'm unbounded from that. Manufacturing, I mean, that's spreadsheet math. That's arithmetic. That's all easy. So I have found that skewing towards initiative and attitude and being willing to teach and train the technical skills has looked like success for a hiring profile. On the
Yeah.
team dynamic side, um, re- before we hire, really doing a gap assessment of not just, what products aren't covered, what processes, what's the future state, we're thinking about where my team is all going to grow into the future state, and then filling those gaps in. I'm also a fan of being very generic in role descriptions and kind of collecting a broad pool of people. Several times, even at Ursa, I've been like, man, the role that I need is a manufacturing engineer to own engine level assembly and test. And what I end up with is a damn good machining guy. And I also needed him, and I go advocate to hire him because that was another gap on my team. Being willing to find someone you weren't looking for and not back yourself into a corner, kind of
Yeah.
thinking short term, long term. Maybe this wasn't the person I needed now. I know I'm going to need him in 3 months. Cool. Let's get that person on board. Plug in with that skill set when we found someone with awesome initiative and attitude.
Yeah. It's interesting we're having this conversation now because just like a week ago, I came across, there's lots of personality assessments out there and DISC and everything. And there's this one that I found that I'd never heard of before. It's called the Game Changer Index. Have you ever heard of the Game
No,
Changer
I've not heard of
Index?
that one.
So it's not meant to be a personality test. It's, like they all say they're not personality tests, but it's like it's meant to be like they use the word proclivities. So like where are you most comfortable? Where do you feel your best? And the way they break it down is so there's five different types. There's the game changer, the strategist, the implementer, the polisher, and then the playmaker. And so the way they describe it is like the game changer is the visionary. They're the one that's like looking out in the future, doing all these crazy things. The strategist is the one that then like kind of takes that crazy vision and like turns it into something that's like, oh, this is what we need to do. The implementer is the one that then wants to go do it. They're the ones building the future. And then the way I always think of it is like the polisher is like the quality person that's just like working to make it perfect and like wants to just keep tweaking it. And then the playmaker is the one that can kind of play in all those places and lets them all talk together. But just for this kind of world, I really liked it because for each one of those, I could almost imagine them in a different department inside a manufacturing company of like, oh, I know who would go there.
I actually love that. And that would be an interesting one to go do with my team and then think about the team dynamic. The other thing that I tend to do, I have a pretty democratic leadership style, which
Mm.
has its positives and it has its negatives. But when we
Mhm.
talk about hiring and rounding out the team, pulsing my team on how we're feeling. We just went through a hiring blitz. We hired like 7 or 8 people over
Oh
the
wow.
course
Okay.
of 6 months for my team, which is an
Yeah.
insane amount of hiring. And so I actually went back to the team to check in and say, like, hey, how are you guys feeling? What do you think the biggest gaps are? Where are you
Hmm.
noticing we're not covered? What are you looking for in deeply engaging them? And it would actually be really interesting to go split the team into those 5 dynamics and say, who's where? What people do we need more of? What's the environment like right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, that can be a hard, uncomfortable thing to engage with, to engage with as a leader. But I have found that teams really appreciate when they're engaged and involved in the decision making. Like they've got to work with the people I hire every day. Give them a say.
Yeah.
Let them be part of the process. At the end of the day, it's your decision as the hiring manager. But I
Mhm.
found it so helpful and empowering to my team members to engage them and say, like, I trust you to choose your new coworkers. Help me do that.
I like it. Anything since you just went through the splits? Any particular lessons that stand out to you? You know, of like as you by the time you got to the sixth one, you're doing things a little bit differently than the first one, or any particular lessons that pop out?
So this time around, I think I've settled into hiring at Ursa. I've done a
Got it.
few of
Got it.
these, but again, to reiterate, like you don't. I've learned I don't always know exactly what I'm looking for. I might think, but let
Mm,
every candidate be themselves and
yeah.
really think through how could this person potentially benefit the teams.
Yeah.
We also have, a hiring methodology at Ursa that I've ended up really liking. Um, Previous roles, it's just been, come in for an interview, talk, ask your STAR questions. At Ursa, we actually have people give a presentation and
Mhm.
we give them prompts around, hey, give us a presentation on something that you were really proud of when you owned a process, designing for manufacturing, et cetera. And that's been really helpful to leave things open-ended and then give our candidates the chance to really showcase their best selves too. We used to do that, I guess this last round of hiring, we used to do that. We used to bring people on site to do that. The lesson I learned and drove was let's do that remote first. You learn a lot about a person when they're kind of presenting to you versus just a half
Yeah.
hour technical screen. So we do that. The other thing in the Ursa hiring process that I appreciate is we do a culture screen. So we're really big on our, we are really grounded in our values, resilience, results, respect. And so every single person that comes in has lunch with a group of people and they're not talking about anything technical. They're just talking about, is this person a culture fit for what we
Nice.
do? And learning to respect that greatly,
Yeah.
saying no to a candidate who is damn good technically, but the lunch panel couldn't stand to talk to is a hard
Yeah.
thing to do. But
Yeah.
learning to do that, I think, has meant success in the hiring process for us.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's I love that you do that. And so this is a group of people that are kind of almost like set aside from like they're not a part of your team. It's like these are people that this is what they're looking for. I like that.
Explicitly not a part of my team. They come from other roles in the business. And just, hey, spend an hour with this person. Which
Yeah. I love
see,
that.
see how you feel. The airport
Yeah.
test, as we call it.
I like it. I like it. And I love, yeah, I've been through a number of company hiring practices that have used that model. And it always seemed really like a really smart way to just kind of get that outside data point. And kind of to that point of, it's not just what you do, but it's how you do it that makes a big difference. And that's kind of what you're looking for
Yeah.
in those kinds of interviews very often.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, I've had the fortune of having a peer in my organization who was like, hey, we're not doing well, we're not onboarding well. So like leaning into that. And this was actually another leadership growth moment for me because this is someone I hired and he was like, yeah, our onboarding sucks. And I took a minute and I was like, wow, I did a shitty job at onboarding, right? Like I suck. And then be like, no, okay, there's so much going on. This is something he's passionate about. How do I harness his passion? And we
Yeah.
implement a new, better onboarding and being like, heck yes, you're doing this. I love that. Thank you so much. Instead of sitting here and like feeling like, man, I was doing a bad job. Now I have new people coming in on my team and he's got all these structured classes for them. And so, a great example, I hired someone who's doing something better than me. And I love that. Feeling proud of that as a leader instead of like feeling like I failed on
Yeah.
some initiative is
Yeah.
important.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about that we talked about last week that is really specific to kind of your role in the company, honestly. And you
Mhm.
touched on this idea that, you thrive in a little bit more of a chaotic environment. You like things to move quickly. And your role very much is about taking the chaos and making it controlled, right? It's like,
Yes.
this one-off neat experiment that we did. Okay, now how do we make 100 of them or 1,000 of them? Or how do we do it for a tenth the cost or whatever it is? And so, especially, innovation, it really is about a balance between those two things. How, as a leader for your team, how do you think about that balance between the chaos that drives innovation and the order of that's required in aerospace and in manufacturing?
Yeah, I mean it's the tactical strategic thing, and I think every company struggles with this. And here the scale of it is just a bit more. We're turning new product designs around in days or weeks. We're putting designs onto engines and hot firing them faster than we would even make a program management decision in much of old aerospace.
Wow.
And so one of the things that I have to recognize as a leader, right? I love to be in the very future, visionary, strategic. This is who we're going to be when we grow up. When we're $1 billion company, this is what it looks like. This is what excellent looks like. I love that.
Yeah.
And I love the like, things are falling apart today. We don't know what we're supposed to build. We have this huge problem. We can't get it done. I love jumping in and I love helping there. And building a team of people who do the blocking and tackling in the middle is the key to success. So I think in my role,
Mm.
it's been very powerful for me to be able to build trust with my engineering counterparts by saying, listen, I'm here for your dev thing. You need to get it done. I'm here for it. Like, I'm the leader. My team is committed. I'm committed. We're going to jump in. We're going to do all your tactical stuff. And then also providing to my team and helping drive within the organization. This is what a good solution actually looks like, right? Going from a pile of parts, some of which have part numbers, some of which don't, some of which people bought on credit cards, some of which went through our ERP system. And dang it, we put it into a vehicle and you know what? That thing flew
Yeah.
to have laying out for my team, here are the tools and systems we are going to use when we're building 500 of these. And then relying on the people who I have in the organization, both working for me and my peers, to say, help me with this middle part. We know we can do this. We know we can get here. Finding the people who are the best program managers, assigning out the strategic work to the people on my team. Who's best suited to do a work instruction template? Who's best suited to implement a new manufacturing system? Who's best suited to flex over and help with this new proposal? Really playing into their strengths and giving them ownership of some of these pieces to get us on the roadmap from the chaos here to the strategy in the middle. And I will
Yeah.
tell you, Matt, it is so easy to wake up and realize it is Thursday and I've done nothing strategic this week. That's the environment. We're making hardware, we're making it quickly. And so
Hmm.
I often have to remind myself to look back 2 years ago or 4 years ago, where we were and where I've helped to get us, and just get back
Interesting.
grounded in that. Okay, am I reminding people enough of their strategic initiatives? Am I spending enough of my own time on the strategy future piece? Again, I think it's the dance every business does. And it's continued growth for me as a leader is like, where am I spending that time? And how am I best utilizing my team members to make sure they're doing the fun stuff, not just the daily tactical work?
Yeah, that actually came up in a recent conversation I had where I think he said it a little bit differently, but it was kind of that idea of sometimes he would go home at the end of the day and just think like, I didn't do anything
I
today. It's
didn't
like,
do
whoa,
anything.
wait, that's not my job. My job is to make sure other people are like to help keep the train moving. It's to provide resources, it's to provide direction. I mean,
Yes.
so that is the job so often. On that idea though of kind of stepping back sometimes, do you have any particular habits or practices to you kind of mentioned like, oh, where were we 3 years ago? But, to help if you get too absorbed in the tactical to help pull you back to that higher
Yeah.
level.
My commute is 45 minutes both ways every day. And when I have a particularly hectic day, the thing I actually do is drive home in silence. And I'm pretty rigorous about that
Ooh,
and taking the time to do it. So I start every single morning with a walk, pre-coffee, pre-caffeine, which would horrify, 10 years ago me.
yeah.
It's the first thing I do when I get up to set the tone for my day of take the dog out, go for a walk, think about what you want to do today. And I don't do it every day, but when I have a particularly hectic day, I leave here and I think, okay, silence and reset on my way home. The other
Yeah.
thing I do is ask my leaders to keep me accountable. I am not naturally someone who asks for help, but I know my tendency is to get into the chaos. And so telling my leaders, hey, I want to get here. I want to be at this big visionary thing. Can you keep reminding me? Can you keep checking in? Can you keep asking me, how's the progress? How's the progress on
Yeah.
manufacturing execution? Where's the floor transformation stuff you said you were going to do? Like
Yeah.
explicitly asking for their
I
help
love
to
that.
keep accountable is also really helpful.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's something that, again, going back to this idea of as a manager, you think you're the one that's supposed to have it all together and have all the answers. And yeah, having that willingness to say, like, look, I need your help with this to hold me accountable is really, really incredible. Well,
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
has been a fantastic conversation, Nancy. I really want to respect your time. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here. I'm sure you're very busy. I look forward to future conversations.
Always delightful to talk to other people about leadership, especially in a technical environment. Thanks so much, Matt.
Thank you so much for listening in on the conversation. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. If you are a manager yourself and you're looking for more insight onto how to better lead your team, please make sure to check out some of our other amazing episodes. If you are responsible for developing leaders in your organization and you're struggling to make programs that actually change behavior and actually impact the business, please reach out so we can figure out how to make your organization better every day. Drop me a line using matt@bettereverydaystudios.com. I look forward to the conversation.